Lovely listener, time now, and he's very kind. He's waited till this moment. Thank you, Henry, very much indeed, to talk to the housing expert, Henry Pryor, about what's going on with stamp duty and what's going on indeed with property and the whole market here in London. Hello, Henry. Good morning.
Dear Vanessa, good morning to you, and thank you to Ross and Rob and all your elves for keeping us so well entertained and informed. What an extraordinary time this is.
How do you know they look like elves? But they do. They really do. And they are doing an absolutely noble job. And if you were to come in here, Henry, you'd be astounded. It's like a desert wasteland. A whole place.
Well, you're all key workers to us. That's the important
We are
thing.
key workers. We're on the key workers list, and we are key workers. But we are, this used to be a hugely bustling department of the BBC, full of people, and now there's barely anyone. I won't call us skeletons because we're managing to keep body and soul together, but not very many of us here. Anyway, the London property market, I think people have been waiting and waiting for the market to kind of implode or disintegrate, because people have thought so many people haven't been making any money, so many people are worried sick about business, and so many people now are losing jobs that they have waited for something awful to happen to the London property market, plus the idea that people have wanted to leave small, crowded, non-garden places in London and go further outside London. But what is really happening?
Well, indeed, as I did in the spring of last year, it seemed inconceivable that the London housing market wouldn't take a knock as a result of the global pandemic and obviously the series of lockdowns that we've experienced. But in fact, the capital's housing market, the buying and the selling of properties has held up incredibly well. Rents, don't wish to tempt fate and prod you to get back to the conversation we were having before the news,
yes.
But the rental market, rents have suffered, they have fallen, not surprisingly. People who pay their rent out of income have seen their incomes fall, in some cases by perhaps only earning 80% of what they were earning just 12 months ago. Rents not across the board, but in many parts of London are down by as much as 15 or 20%. That's a significant amount, and it will have a knock-on effect in due course to capital values. But sales have held up. You can buy and you can sell with confidence in the capital at the moment, but the total volumes are not where they were 12 months ago. Across the UK as a whole, they're about 20% down. 2020 numbers were down by about 20%, but in the capital, down by much closer to 50%. And what people are waiting for is the impact of the end of the stamp duty holiday. This is something that the Chancellor, as you know well, Vanessa, introduced on the 8th of July last year. A holiday for those buying properties wouldn't have to pay the stamp duty up to a value of £500,000, the average price of a property in London. That comes to an end at the end of March.
Right.
And there have been calls, indeed, a petition to Parliament gathered 140,000 signatures begging the Chancellor to extend the holiday possibly by as much as 6 or 8 weeks. It doesn't look like the Treasury is going to do that, and the fact that it's been denied so robustly in the newspapers just tends to make me think perhaps that actually that we might find when the Chancellor stands up for the budget on the 3rd of March, actually he might extend it. So London's housing market, not bad.
If he doesn't, Henry, then what?
Well, the world will not stop turning.
Right.
The sky will not fall on our heads.
Right, good.
There are always properties, sales and purchases that are in the system transacting, roughly 140,000 at any one particular moment in time. And in the capital, there are lots of people who are in the process and finding it quite difficult, not surprisingly, to get their sales across the line. So some people will find that they're unable to exchange and complete. That's the important thing by the 31st of March. But most deals that have been done since New Year were done by buyers and sellers on the basis that they wouldn't get the benefit of the stamp duty holiday, and therefore those deals are unlikely to fall over. If there are deals where people were hoping or expecting or indeed needed to get the stamp duty holiday, then estate agents and their advisors, lawyers, conveyancers are going to be able to put those deals, I'm sure, back together and make sure these chains hold up. So it's not going to be the end of the world, but it will be a hiccup, as always happens when these sort of initiatives come to an end. It's a cliff edge, Vanessa, is what they call it, and it's happened before. It will happen again, but lots of people have benefited from it.
So keep a cool head about it. That's the crucial thing. Henry, do you mind if we fling at you an entirely spontaneous question from a lovely listener?
Please,
I mean,
go
if you
ahead.
don't know, then you won't know. But we just thought we might ask you now
Try it.
as you're here. Thank you very much.
No
And this is a
pressure.
highly esteemed and beloved, lovely listener, Jude in Finsbury Park. Hello, Jude.
Hi, I'm in Turnpike Lane. I'm at home.
Beg your pardon?
So I'm in Turnpike Lane.
Oh, you're in Turnpike Lane. Okay, cool. Listen, you have a question for Henry. Just lob it at him, and if he doesn't know it, then he doesn't know it.
Yeah, hi Henry. How are you?
Jude, morning. Morning.
My son is just about to move out. He's 23. He's moving up to Lancaster to the university town to do his PhD. And he's just managed to secure a flat. And it's taken a long time, obviously. It's been a bit of a pain. But they are asking for 6 months' rent in advance, plus a guarantor, which he's got, and it's an unfurnished flat, so he has to buy furniture. And I just wondered whether this was anything to do, because 6 months' rent in advance is an awful lot of money. And I wondered if this was anything to do with COVID and how normal that was, and whether there was any room for negotiation, or it seems a lot of money to pay up front.
Well, you've rung your local BBC radio station because, as always, we know the answers. And here on BBC London is the answer to you, Jude.
Hooray!
The answer is that, yes, we're all discovering, aren't we, that our lives are changing and indeed will continue to change through the remainder of 2021. You will, as many listeners will be aware, either directly or indirectly, that student accommodation and the commitments that students are being asked to make, and indeed their parents, in many cases, has been very trying and traumatic over the last year. Many landlords in university towns and cities up and down the land are obviously understandably nervous about commitments that tenants might be making, students may be making over the next academic year, and some are trying to ensure that they've protected their downside at a time when government legislation may mean that students start to get a little more flexibility or relief when it comes to the commitments they've made. If your son is going to Lancaster but discovers that, as many students have when they get there, or that they're told beforehand, don't bother coming, you may be slightly miffed to find that you've got a commitment to continue to pay the rent, but the landlord, of course, wants to ensure that his income or her income is protected. So it's a way for landlords to try and ensure that they can't be left high and dry, despite the fact that education might take a change of direction. You can negotiate, you should negotiate, but as with all negotiations, both parties need to come to a compromise, and that compromise will almost certainly be uncomfortable for you both.
What sort of, okay, so say, does he need to get some proof that that money's been protected under a scheme and stuff? So
yes, there's a deposit protection. The law is very clear on this. There's a deposit protection requirement. The letting agent involved in the transaction will have obligations in law to protect that deposit. You, as a parent who are providing that guarantee, is belt and braces. There's an argument that I suspect that in common sense you're either providing all the rent up front or a significant chunk of it, or you're providing the guarantee. The guarantee ought to be enough, frankly, for most landlords. But you're absolutely right, Jude. It's a matter of negotiation, as it often is in life. And I'm sure that you'll find that the letting agent and the landlord will be only too pleased to engage with you and welcome your son to Lancaster. It's a place I know well. You'll have a lovely time there as we get back to normal.
Jude, congratulations and thank you very much indeed. Henry, honestly, magnificent. If we'd been rehearsing you for decades, you couldn't have acquitted yourself more nobly and gloriously than that. Thank you very much indeed. You're always magnificent on the programme. We send you so much love and would love to see you in person whenever we're allowed. Henry Pryor, isn't he fabulous? The housing expert. We had no warning. He didn't know what he was going to be asked. And of course, he knew the answer perfectly. So great. All right, we're going to take a trail and then it'll be time for our paper review.